Hello and welcome to Tales from the Unknown. My name is Zach and I am currently on a quest to find out what makes a great tabletop monster, and to fulfill said quest, we will be diving into different tabletop systems, different bestiaries, looking at individual creatures, trying to figure out what makes them so great and how they can improve your games. And I can't think of a better creature, or I should say creatures, to start this entire journey off with than the Goblins of Dolmenwood. So, without any more delay, let's go into the dark forests, you know? Blue-skinned fairy merchants and charlatans who ferry odd goods from fairy to trade in Dolmenwood, they have a deep love for material wealth, except silver, that rivals that of mortals. They are creatures that are sly and tricksy and craven and whimsical, and they speak with animated banter. All that comes from their monster page in the Dolmenwood Monster Book. They are creatures that bridge the world of mortals and fairies, two different worlds with two completely different sets of rules. They are creatures that are small but come in so many sizes, such as, have you ever wanted a goblin that has a bristly boar-like face with large tusks? Well, the Goblins of Dolmenwood can do that. How about a goblin that has feline face features and wiry whiskers, or maybe crawls on all fours, or maybe even has a very large head and a small body, or a very small head and a large body? That is all possible with the Goblins of Dolmenwood, and like I said, it's all right here on their page. There's a reason why I chose the Goblins of Dolmenwood to be the first creature on this quest, because realistically, if you've clicked on this video, you probably have an expectation for what a goblin looks like. If you've played tabletop games, if you've read fantasy literature, if you've played video games, you probably have an idea of what a goblin is, you know? And I think the Goblins of Dolmenwood are much, much more than a traditional goblin you might find in a fantasy game. They are small, but bring a lot of chaos and a lot of potential to your games, and that's just all from the descriptions. We haven't even got into the mechanics of what these creatures can do, because their mechanics really amplify their descriptors. They really allow them to act as these chaotic, untrustworthy merchants from a far away alien world that your most likely mortal player characters are going to have to deal with and make deals with. So let's get into what the Goblins of Dolmenwood can do mechanically. So the Goblins of Dolmenwood really have three abilities I want to talk about. Starting at the top, we have Theft. What Theft allows the goblins to do is, once per target, a goblin may attempt to magically purloin a valuable trinket up to 10 coins of weight they have seen in a mortal's possession. If the victim fails a save versus hold, the item is whisked away into the goblin's pack and replaced with an illusory replica which evaporates into mist when touched. If the save succeeds, the victim feels a momentary tug on the item which remains in their possession. So like I said before, the Goblins of Dolmenwood are merchants, they're charlatans, they're there to bridge the gap between the mortal world and the fairy world. They're there to sell weird, strange, alien, exotic, fairy goods to the mortal people. But one of their core abilities allows them to steal from those same people with like the snap of their fingers. It makes them an untrustworthy merchant. This ability also makes for a wonderful introduction to this creature, seeing that they aren't, you know, aggressive, they're not combative, so your party might run into them in the woods, and then as soon as they leave the goblins, they may soon realize that, you know, some of their possessions may have been stolen from them, which then sets up the second ability, which is illusory goods. Goblins sometimes sell illusory goods that evaporate into mist after 1 hour. Such ruses can be revealed by detect magic and similar. So if Theft really sets this creature up, illusory goods, it can like set up the second encounter, you know? Also leads to this really, really fun idea that like these are the fairy merchants, the goblins are, but they are so untrustworthy. So what can you actually give these creatures to make your players want to actually deal with them, which can create some really interesting scenarios? Like, what type of information, what type of items do your players need to maybe fulfill a quest that they then have to, you know, bargain with creatures that can steal things with ease, and also, you know, create illusions with equal ease? And then the last ability really is probably one of my favorite abilities I've read in a long time for a creature. And I say an ability, it's more of a rule that goes along with this creature. And that is the Code of Hospitality. What this says is if a goblin is invited into a place by way of handwritten invitation or swearing an oath of good behavior, they are bound by ancient rites of hospitality and are unable to use their magic of illusion and theft within this place. So if the first two abilities set up these creatures as untrustworthy merchants that you have to deal with, the Code of Hospitality gives your players a tool to then deal with the goblins, but it's not an easy tool. They are first going to have to find out about the Code of Hospitality, which can be a quest in itself. They are then going to have to trick said goblins into, accepting a gesture, a handwritten letter, to then make a deal with them. Meaning that every time the party deals with the goblins, it is going to become a war, not of fists and swords and clubs, but a war on who can trick the other party better, who can outmaneuver the other party to get what they want, which makes for a very interesting creature. Like I said, these aren't combative creatures, they aren't aggressive, the goblins aren't going to attack the party, but they're probably going to hold on to something that the party needs, and then the party is going to have to make some pretty interesting choices to figure out how they're going to deal with that. Now, with that all being said, we've talked about the descriptors, we've talked about traits, we've talked about what these creatures can do. Let's break down what makes them so great. Even though I've already kind of done that, this is my first video, I'm still trying to figure out, this quest is new, I'm the hero's journey and everything, I'm also going through with this, video. So let's break down what makes the Goblins of Dolmenwood so great. So there are really three core things that I think make the Goblins of Dolmenwood a great tabletop monster. The first thing being is they are tone setters. The world of Dolmenwood is a world in which fairies and strange creatures and just weirdness are interacting with a mortal world, or I should say flipped. Mortals are trying to make their way in an alien weird forest that is filled with these strange things. And the Goblins of Dolmenwood set that up greatly. Like I said, if you've clicked on this video, you probably have an understanding of what a goblin is. So if you are a low-level party, you're making your way through the forest, you run into a goblin, how these goblins act, what abilities they have, how animated and wild and whimsical they are, that is going to set the tone for that game. It's also going to give your players an understanding that, this is how you are going to have to deal with these creatures in these woods. You're not going to be able to just fight them. You're not going to be able to just brute force what you want. You are going to have to find a way to outmaneuver the creatures. Goblins set that up. They are a great first or low-level encounter to throw at your party to kind of get an expectation for what the system is all about. So the first thing that makes these creatures great is, like I said, they're tone setters. The second thing is everything on this page is about giving the person running the game, the referee, tools to make interesting encounters. Theft alone can create multiple different encounters. What if the goblins are roaming in a pack of, well, it says 2d6, so 12 goblins make their way through a town. They use theft on a bunch of the townspeople. What does that look like? That is now an encounter. Or, like I said, the party runs into goblins in the wood, they are friendly, and then they have their things stolen, and that's just two of many examples of what you can do just with that ability alone. And then you have illusory goods, which adds on a bunch of different encounters. And then Code of Hospitality, it not only gives the person running the game a tool to create an interesting quest, an interesting encounter, but it also gives the players a tool to use against the monsters that isn't just go get a stake to kill the vampire. It is something that the party is going to have to work for. It's something that the party is going to have to think outside of the box to use to then, make a deal with the goblins. Everything about this page, like I said, is designed to make encounters and scenarios and quests interesting. There's nothing on this page that won't make your game more interesting. And that's really what makes the Goblins of Dolmenwood great. They are small, but they will always leave a huge impact on your game. And yeah, that's it for the Goblins of Dolmenwood, but we still have so many more monsters to cover. The next couple weeks, I'm going to be covering a couple more monsters from Dolmenwood, specifically the Dolmenwood monster book. Throughout this video, hopefully this is going to be a note to me in the future. I've hopefully put a lot of art from this book within the video, so all the artist credit and all that stuff is going to be down below. I highly recommend the monster book for Dolmenwood, even if you're not going to play in the system. It is filled with such wonderful and weird creatures that you're going to be able to use really for any system that you are running. Also, along with that, this is like the first type of video I've ever made just focusing on one monster, and obviously this series is going to evolve, but if you have any comments, thoughts on this video, please let me know down below. Along with that, if you have a system or a bestiary, I want to call it bestiary so bad, the old habits, please let me know down below to like what ones I should check out. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, be excellent to each other.